Hi, everybody. It's Matt West of PowerChalk in Cary, North Carolina, and I've got live on the phone today Nick Caringi, the Senior Director of Operations for Little League Baseball. And, Nick, it's great to have you on the phone. And, of course, what we want to do today is show the viewers your son, Kyle. And I'll let you talk a little bit about him, but we're going to take him through the delivery using the Chalk Talk Telestrator that everyone from Little League Baseball can find at littleleagueconnect.org. So, Nick, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Matt. You've all known about our pitch count rule, but one of the other facets of keeping kids safe on the pitcher's mound and their arms safe is to concentrate on their mechanics a little more. So you'll hear more about pitching mechanics from Little League International throughout the next few months or so. Right now, I just want to show you, this is my son, Kyle. Kyle's 10 years old. So first, let's take a look here at Kyle. I have Kyle start off kind of at an angle, and most pitchers will start with their feet square to the rubber, square on the rubber facing the plate. You can see Kyle's eyes are still in check. He's still locked in on his target. Part of the reason I have him start from the side is because it allows him to get this pivot foot into the rubber a little easier than starting square or straight towards the batter. So let's kind of walk through this, and I'll show you a couple things that we've been working on. He takes his small step back, and Matt, you can chime in here at any time if you see something that our viewers think is of notice or of point that would be a good teaching tool. He takes a small step to the side, and I really don't mind this. Some kids step straight back, some step kind of at an angle. I don't mind him stepping to the side, and mainly because I still see him over the rubber, and he's still in good control of his body. So for me, I think he's in good shape. He's not pulling himself off the rubber that much, and most of all, and most importantly, he's comfortable. Okay, so his hands...
You're right about that, and I think that if I may add one thing, there's lots of different ways to do the same thing. I think that what the viewer will see, and again, you're broadcasting the screen live to me from Williamsport, so it's amazing for me to be on the receiving end of this, is that it's more important where he's going to end up when his foot lands and his arm gets in position. So again, I commend you that if it makes it more comfortable for him to step to the side to clear his left foot out and get it firmly planted in the rubber, then that's fine.
Mm-hmm. No, and one of the other things, Matt, I wanted to bring to your attention is Kyle doesn't bring his hands over his head sometimes like your traditional pitcher would. And part of that is, and this isn't something that I've taught him, it's just something that he kind of does on his own. It helps with his balance. You know, as a 10-year-old, and when he started throwing as a younger 7 or 8-year-old, he found that when he would put his hands over his head, he would actually lose balance and try to regain balance on the rubber and get going again. I don't know, Matt, if there are many pitchers that you've seen at the professional ranks that choose to kind of keep their hands at their eye level as opposed to going over their head.
Well, you know what? I went over my head, and there are plenty of people who don't. There are plenty of people who did both at different points in their career. I think the most important point is that once the hands start into a position where you're going to break them and the ball's going to drop out, so to speak, and the arm starts to move, I look more of what the hands are doing at that position than whether the pitcher goes over his head. Right. And quite frankly, it's probably, as you're saying, it's probably more of an impediment for a young pitcher to go over his head and have to manage how that works rather than keeping his hands where your sons are right now.
Right, I agree. So let's step forward here a few slides. Here Kyle gets to his pivot foot, and he's in good position, I think. And again, he's still over the rubber, which is I feel he's probably in good shape. He'll start to bring his knee lift up, and this is one of the things, Matt, that you and I were talking about just last night via email. He's got a pretty good knee lift, I mean, in terms of where he is. But there's one thing that sometimes I don't know if it's a comfort thing for him or not, but if you look at his foot's actually pointed straight. And in my experience when I've pitched, when this foot was pointed, this created too much tension in this knee or in this thigh area, and it kind of restricted what type of knee lift you would get. So one of the things, Matt, I thought I would work on, I was kind of get your comments on it, is just to allow him to have his foot relax a little bit and take the tension out of that leg. Do you think that would help his knee lift a little bit?
It would, and I think that relaxing that front foot almost sets in motion what's going to happen when that foot is going to land. And I know we're going to talk about that in a minute relative to Kyle's landing position. But I think that when there's tension there, or when you're literally pointing your heel versus your toe, letting your toe relax, I think the potential to be a heel striker and then end up having that front leg get stiff, which, as we both know, is a telltale sign from your days as a pitching coach and mine, that the pressure from unloading the baseball, which is already difficult enough, is going to head up through the elbow and shoulder.
Right.
Off a stiff front leg. And I know that Kyle doesn't do that, but most kids who have that front foot in the position that Kyle's in are heading toward potentially being a heel striker.
Right. So as he comes forward, the one thing that I am impressed with him about is that he does, if you notice, he's actually coming down and out with his stride, which I think, and Matt, you can comment, is the best way to do the stride as opposed to allowing this knee to kind of swing out like a gate and then your hips open a little too early. So, I'm happy that he's leading really with the outside of his foot, and as we go through frame by frame, he's getting down to now as his knee lift comes down, he's breaking his hands, as Matt said, getting that ball out and then up. But he's still leading with the outside of his foot, which I think is pretty good because his hips are still closed. But also, notice, and Matt, you might want to comment, notice how closed his shoulders are too. So
he's in very good position right there, Nick. I mean, I commend you and commend Kyle. Very solid position there as he head towards the point where he's going to go ahead and plant his front foot and unload.
Mm-hmm. So as we get down to this next frame, he's still leading with the outside of his foot. His hips are still closed. He's still creating a little bit of torque, so we've got that kind of that hip-shoulder separation. And then one of the things that I think, I'm really concerned about, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on it, as he gets down into his stride, and incidentally, when his foot hits, he's at a good throwing position with his elbow, I feel.
Very much.
So here his hips are opening, and yet his shoulders are still closed. So we have that hip-shoulder separation that is going to create that power for him. But, Matt, one of the things that I talked to you about last night was the concern that I had with his stride. And this is it's not a very good angle that I took the video of. Incidentally, I took this video with my phone. I didn't take it with a high-powered HD camera. So those coaches out there that if you have a video capabilities on your phone and you use the upload tool provided with Little League Connect and PowerCast, you can just upload this right to your server, right to your site, and you're ready to go to Telestrate.
Nick,
but one of the things, Matt, I'm concerned about is this. Yeah, one of the things I'm concerned about is this position right here with his foot. Can you comment and just give me some ideas on what I can do?
Since we're not together, and that's really the beauty in using Little League Connect, since we're not together, what I would ask you to do is I might ask you to take your laser pointer, Nick, and maybe kind of focus everyone's attention around the letters across his jersey and even to his chest. And then also, if you can draw a circle around his head, you can see that he's starting to arch his back, and it probably began when he was about 2 frames before. And when he's arching his back, really what that means, he's going to take his weight and distribute it to the third base side. He being a left-handed pitcher, he's kind of moving toward the third base side. And I think what ends up happening is his front leg moves in that direction to balance himself out. Otherwise, he'd literally not necessarily fall over, but he'd be getting to a position where right there, when he landed, he'd cross over and fall towards the third base side when he was unloading. So, again, another positive thing is I think Kyle is making an adjustment right there to what position his body's in. So what I would advocate for is maybe, Nick, if you can kind of take the laser pointer and around his abdomen, is if he could think about tucking in a little bit with his abdominal muscles when he's at the top of his delivery, that helps in keeping him tucked and not getting to where he starts arching his back. And you and I both know oftentimes the arching of the back is trying to get on top of the ball. But your son's arm action is beautiful, and he doesn't need to try to get on top. So, so if I had to give you that one thing to take away, it may be not even to focus on that front foot being softer, but can he go ahead and tuck his tummy and kind of hunch over just a touch at the top and see what that does to having his stride position kind of straighten out a little bit.
Well, even straightening that stride out will probably elongate the stride as well.
That's right.
I would think. So, I mean, and that's...
To that point, I think he's falling to the third base side to balance himself out when he could be driving, to your point, a little bit further down the hill and unloading towards home plate.
Right, and obviously the longer the stride is, the closer you release the ball to the plate. Closer you release the ball to the plate, the faster the ball goes. So that's something, Matt, that I've really never thought about. And I know, when we get to some of the major league players and some of the big league pitching coaches, they start talking about loading the scaps, which, I really don't want to get into with a 10-year-old. But to your point, that back arching a little bit does make sense. So he's actually compensating. So
well, and maybe, Nick, that's a good place for us to close our session today, is because we're looking at your son right at that point where everyone can see visually where he is kind of arching a little bit. And I would say that might be the one thing that you and Kyle go to work on. And for all of our viewers out here, again, this was a live session with Nick Caringi, who's in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, home of Little League International, along with me, Matt West, in Cary, North Carolina. And all of these tools are available to everyone for Little League Baseball at littleleagueconnect.org. Nick, we appreciate your time. Look forward to hearing back from you on how that may have helped Kyle.
Thank you.